I'm Hannah.
And I'm Georgia.
And you're listening to Film Picnic.
We begin, as always, by acknowledging that Film Picnic is recorded on the ancestral lands of the Musqueam people. This land is referred to as unceded territory as it was not given up freely, and it continues to be home for the indigenous communities from which it is stolen.
It is with immense privilege that we talk into these microphones and share our stories, as stories have been shared for generations before us on this land. We hope that Film Picnic can be a space for shared accountability, knowledge sharing, and reconciliation. This always was and always will be Indigenous land.
Period. Today, we are joined by an award-winning Vancouver-based director who has built a reputation for creating character-driven films that portray complex female and non-binary protagonists. Our guest embraces a passion for telling stories that make people feel less alone, which resonates throughout their body of work. This accomplished filmmaker has participated in several prestigious programs, including the National Screen Institute, the Whistler Film Festival Talent Labs, and the Women in the Director's Chair Story and Leadership Program, and was awarded a creator mentorship from the Gina Davis Institute. Now their debut feature film, What Comes Next, is currently in the works in post-production. Yes? Tell me I'm right? You're nodding your head. Okay. Today we're here to discuss their latest project, Me and Her, which premieres at the Vancouver Short Film Festival on June 15th, 2025. We'll be there. A film that explores complex mother-daughter relationships and continues their commitment to centering stories around nuanced female experiences. Please welcome Alex Caufield.
Hi. Thank you. That was such a lovely introduction.
Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited to have you. We bumped into you after your panel at Vancouver Queer Film Festival. It was actually our first festival that we attended together as Film Picnic.
Oh my God, yeah,
so
it was.
Yeah, it's a bit of a full circle moment to have you here on our picnic blanket.
Oh,
yeah.
I feel very honored. It's such a great setup. I tried to come like picnic vibes.
Yes, and you know what?
And you did.
Yeah, you showed up and showed out.
With the linen, I know, well, maybe we've said this before, but guys, it's really hot in here.
It is.
It's really hot in this room. Yeah, so linen's a good move.
To start off, I was
Please.
wondering if you could expand on your mission to tell stories that make people feel less alone.
Yeah. I guess, I don't know. I think maybe a lot of filmmakers and artists will relate to this, but I was kind of a lonely kid. I struggled to find the place where I fit. And, also, it was the 90s, and my parents were very busy, so I watched a lot of TV.
Same.
Like a lot of TV.
What
and
were you watching on TV?
we lived in Texas when I was little, and so I watched a lot of UPN, so like a lot of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, a lot
Yes!
of Moesha. Just honestly anything that was on. I probably knew way too much about the whole Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky thing at like age 5.
So
that
nice.
was terrifying looking back. I'm like, oh dear, why did I know so much about that? But yeah, so I felt alone a lot as a little kid, and I found a lot of solace in television and in movies, and it made me feel like someone else out there understood what I was going through, or maybe thought the same way I did, and I hope that my work can do that for someone else and just pay that forward.
That resonates with me deeply.
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
I mean, I think, even... I remember there was another moment at the Vancouver Queer Film Festival last year where everyone, it was like a big audience, and everyone was kind of chiming in about the characters that they, like queer characters that they had identified with in TV and film. But even beyond queer identity, like, it feels so validating to see representation or see something in a piece of media that you're like, wow, that's me. And
Also just a comforting escape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be able to, you're not being judged by the show that you're watching.
No.
And that was a very comforting thing for me when I was young. Yeah. A young, weird child.
Same.
Funny anecdote here. The first time I watched Fresh Prince, I was like immediately drawn. I was like, I love Carlton. And I was like, I need to try his dance move. And now sometimes I'll bust it out.
You do.
At a party.
You do, in fact.
Oh,
I can vouch for that.
Yeah. Less on Fresh Prince, more on other things. Writer Michelle Addison has said that Me and Her is told from the mother's perspective, which is maybe less common in coming-of-age stories when it's more focused on the person coming of age. Yeah, I don't know. Like, what drew you to directing a story that was kind of told from this other perspective?
Yeah, so I when I shot it, I had a 7-year-old daughter. I now have an 8-year-old daughter.
Yay.
So being a birthing parent is something that has affected my life greatly over the past 8-9 years. And I personally have the belief that there are many coming of ages in our lives. So we come of age. Everyone thinks about maybe like when you're 15 and you're kind of figuring out how the world works, or like you're going off to university. But I keep getting older, and then I keep becoming a new version of myself because of the challenges that I'm facing. And so I like to think we're all coming of age, and that's something that plays a lot in my different pieces. And I just think that like a lot of women and femme people don't, like, the stories stop being told once it's like the rom-com to get married, or like something to have a baby, and then it's like
life's over.
Yes, you stop existing after that point. When I think especially in filmmaking and in other creative pursuits, like, you're just starting to get good when you're in your 30s and in your 40s. You're starting to get a handle on it.
I'm
right?
personally very excited to be in my 30s. I feel like I'll kind of know a little bit more about who I am and be able to move with more confidence.
Yeah. A very spooky phrase that just entered my mind is it sounds like a parental puberty of sorts.
Interesting.
Ooh, yeah, I said it was spooky. I prefaced it with the fact that it was spooky. Well, yeah.
No,
anyways,
I love that.
No,
yeah,
that's
we
something
are
I've
all
said. So
coming of age consistently.
And we are. Yeah. Actually, I'm just thinking, like, maybe for our listeners who are entirely unfamiliar with me and her, because we've done some research, but we know not everybody is aware. Like, can you just give us a little synopsis, a little
line of sorts?
Yeah. So Me and Her is a story about Ellen, who is a mother in her 40s. She is also a longtime recovering alcoholic, who, had made some choices in her past, had some bad things happen to her, especially as a teenager and someone in their early 20s. And now her daughter is becoming a teenager and wants to go to her first kind of no parents party. And this is bringing up a lot of things for Ellen and kind of triggering some memories she hasn't thought about in a long time. And so it's a short film that basically follows Ellen's coming to grips with this, and she eventually I don't know how many people, maybe pause this if you're going to go see it and you don't want to be spoiled, but like she does eventually let her daughter go to the party, and then has to work through her feelings about that and realize that her daughter is a different person than she is. And the relationship's going to be different than the one she had with her mom.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love that.
I was already excited, but now I'm sold.
Yeah. What was your experience like collaborating with Michelle on this project?
I love working with Michelle.
Michelle is the writer?
Michelle is the writer and the lead actor in the film. And
period.
Yeah, amazing. And she and I met when I was directing a TV movie and she was acting in it. And I quite liked her at the time. And then we kept in touch. And maybe a year later, she sent me the script and said she really downplayed it and was like, "Oh, this is like the first thing I've written. I don't know if it's any good." And then I read it and was like, "Oh my gosh, we have to make this, and we have to make this now."
The first thing she's written.
Yeah, I mean, I think for a short film she's written. I don't know all the details. I think she wrote a play in college and things like that. And she's a very experienced actor and wonderfully creative person. And so, it was a really great collaboration. I haven't gotten to work that closely with a writer before. I've directed things I haven't written, but usually
the writers,
they're off somewhere
writing their
away.
next piece.
So this was fun, and I was so happy she trusted me and trusted my vision and the way I saw things, which was great. But it was wonderful to have her, just like her wisdom there and her creativity there as well to work with.
I'm curious, were there any, because personally, as I really admire directors who direct other people's writing, because personally my only experience directing is with my own writing, so when I'm writing it I have a clear vision. I'm curious to know, working with the writer as the actor, were there any challenges there in, like, you know, your directorial vision versus what Michelle had maybe envisioned for a scene or a moment in particular?
I was so ready for there to be challenges, and then there weren't really, especially in production. We had discussed things. I think we had a very similar vision, and we had discussed things a lot in advance. And so, and she's also just such an experienced actor that, like, when she's on set, that's what she's doing.
Yeah.
And she's showing up. She knows the character so well. That was the thing that was really beautiful about it, because she wrote it. She really knew the character inside and out. And yeah, I think there was a little bit, and it wasn't even like bad tension, but like when we were doing the edit, like she and I also are producers on it. And so we're doing the edit, and it was funny. We actually, like, I cut something, and then she did a pass of it with our editor, and then I did another pass of it with our editor. And then, and we just were able to, like, each of us saw it differently. And I think by going in separately, we found different moments and different ways to bring things together, and it made the piece a lot stronger.
That's so interesting.
So yeah, there's a good creative tension, like a friction. Sometimes you need that in.
It's important to have
post.
different perspectives.
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna ask too, like, even just upon reading the script, were there certain moments, or I guess this also applies for, like, maybe scripts in general, when you're, especially projects that you haven't written, but like, did you read the script and think that were there certain moments that stood out to you that you were very excited about, or that, like, really, I don't know, had like an impact on you in a way that made you want to join the project?
Yeah, interestingly, something that I thought was really a great moment, and like this kind of moment of comedy, didn't actually make it into the final cut because it just wasn't quite working. But in the script, it worked great.
Yeah.
And so that was something that drew me to it.
Did you guys film it?
We did film it.
You did film
yeah,
it. And
we filmed it, and we just, when we were putting it in, we tried putting it in a few different spots, and it was part of the kind of, there's a montage-ish thing, couple different scenes where she's waiting while her daughter's at the party, and like she's trying to pass time without like freaking out. And so there was some funny stuff that it just didn't quite. It was like maybe a little too, it was too long, or just didn't quite fit with the pacing.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't like push the story along in a way that you need it to, and it might be a great moment. I remember sitting in on a read through of a feature film, and one of the feedback was like, this script is so funny and there are so many great funny moments, but don't maybe get too attached to those moments that you love, because sometimes even though it's great, it like doesn't, like you were saying, it doesn't fit quite well, or it doesn't do what it needs to in such a short period. It's hard when you have, is it 15 minutes?
I feel it. Yeah, it's 14 and a half minutes all in. So it's pretty quick.
Tight window.
Yeah. And I think like this, there's a bit of a truism. It's probably been said a lot, but like, you write the script and then you kind of rewrite it when you're filming it, because that's how, and then you rewrite it again.
Yeah.
And you cut it. Yeah. And so it does have to be, you have to look at what you have and how it becomes the best film that it can be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm interested a lot in the kind of aspects of recovery and trauma that exist in this film. Hannah and I actually just had a really interesting conversation with the interim director of Doc, Maya Bastian.
We did.
On centering well-being in your production. She had a lot of really interesting thoughts on just, like her
somatic
practices for, like maintaining kind of like emotional safety on sets. I don't know. I guess like as a director, what was your approach to directing like emotionally complex material and handling those feelings?
Yeah, so even though this has finished first, I'd actually shot my feature film before I shot this short, and we just had a bit of a prolonged post-process, as indie films often do.
Yes. Classic.
And so on my feature, I had worked with this wonderful intimacy coordinator. And now Megan Gilron, her last name escaped me for a moment. Megan Gilron.
Shout out.
And she's wonderful. And so I asked her to come on to our short, and we didn't have a huge budget. So she actually also did our costumes for us, which was amazing.
Talented.
Yeah, just like she's a very, very talented person. And so Megan helped us both with choreographing some of the flashback scenes. There's also, you can see in the trailer, there's some shots where Michelle is reliving some memories while she's in the shower, and so that had some level of nudity in it, and Megan really helped with that. And then she's also very trained in just helping people manage their feelings and being available for when something might come up, and like mental health first aid and those kinds of things. So she did that both for my feature and then also on the short as well. And so I think that helped create a really safe space. And we had like a very, very queer, very trans, very like women-centric crew.
Love.
And I think that
Let's talk about it. Happy Pride, guys.
Happy
It's June.
Pride. Yes. My next question actually was, given that it was a predominantly female, non-binary, trans crew, can you speak to the importance of representation, not just in front of the camera, but behind the camera as well?
Yeah, I do feel like, and it doesn't even, this was a majority, like, non-men crew, I guess, is like a simple way to put it. Non-cis men crew. But I don't even think it needs to be a majority for it to make a huge difference. Like when I've been on crews where I think it's probably about 30% is where the difference is made. Like it's just people act better.
It's better behavior.
Yeah, everyone's on a little bit better behavior. But I think it's really great for a sense of community, and it helps, like, it does help foster safety and like an openness. Yeah. Especially in like really sensitive scenes, like some of the stuff we shot. And like, to be clear, all of the cis men on our show were amazing and sensitive and did a wonderful job. Yeah. They just weren't in the majority in this case. Yeah.
I think you can also kind of see that on screen when it's a safe environment, when people are enjoying themselves. I think the final product ends up being better quality.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say how lovely that you also knew your costumes and intimacy coordinator from your feature, prior to even coming on the set. Like, having someone that you can feel safe with, but then it's like, oh, you already have this established relationship, and like, I imagine that would be helpful and kind.
Yes, it was really helpful, and I think intimacy coordinating is a tough job, and I think there's a lot of different ways to do it, and certain, everyone's going to have their preference, but I think in working with Megan, like, as a person who understands both all the health and safety aspects of this and takes them very seriously, but they're also a person who understands story and character. Yeah. And if there's, the writer or the director has a vision of seeing it one way and the actor is maybe feeling uncomfortable with the exact images that are maybe in the director's mind, then finding a way to, okay, what are we trying to establish with this? What are you trying to hit emotionally and story-wise? And then helping be creative and find a new way to still make sure the story is told properly, but in a way where everyone feels safe and respected.
Yeah, and also that's they are experienced in directing and choreographing maybe more intimate scenes. So I think having an intimacy coordinator on set really helps with that and making it more authentic and, like you said, comfortable for the actors. And the more comfortable it is, the less maybe robotic or awkward it might appear on camera.
Yes, definitely.
Continuing on the mental health subject, your character Ellen manages her anxieties through strict routines and control. How were you working with Michelle to portray this internal struggle in an authentic way on screen?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of that was there in the script when I read it, but it's just something I really relate to. My life is pretty regimented in a lot of ways, and I've found ways that I can relax those routines around filmmaking, because you are working weird hours and variable hours, and things are changing all the time, but then also building in the recovery time for after that to make sure that then you take the time to rest and heal and get back on track in that way.
Yeah. I feel like we've spoken a lot about work-life balance, but I was just having a conversation yesterday with one of my friends that I'm like, I feel like life isn't a very. I work at a restaurant also, and a customer told me like, oh, happy Friday, happy weekend, and I was like, oh, you mean Thursday? And they were like, no, it's Friday.
Yeah, my
and
agent.
I just completely, I was like, I didn't know what day it was. Like, the regiment is, sometimes it can be so helpful, and then other times when I am able to abandon that a little bit, I think it is also really freeing. And
yeah, no, that's just funny. My agent texted me this morning being like, enjoy your Sunday off, and I was like, yeah.
Definitely off.
Is it off?
Definitely
off. Not us saying the same things at the same time.
All the time. Well, we kind of touched on this a little. I mean, you just mentioned work-life balance, but you have a feature in post-production and you have a short premiering.
Yeah.
How do you balance multiple projects at once?
At multiple stages.
I think it's funny because everything has like an ebb and flow to it, and that's really how it worked. I shot my feature. We did like a kind of first director's cut of it, and then we were like, okay, we're going to get some more funding, so we're going to take a pause on this. And then in the pause, Michelle's an amazing producer, and we raised the money for the production very quickly. And so over the course of like 6 months, we had basically raised the money, shot it, and then during the summer, we did our post-production. And that's, again, it's a few days in the edit suite here and there. It's, sending it off to the colorist and the composer, and then doing back and forth, like, feedback on things. And then we did a little bit of ADR and sound mixing in person. But especially with a short, a lot of it is send away and then come back and notes and send away. And come back and notes, because people are helping you out and working off the side of their desk kind of thing. So you have also participated in some different programs, like the National Screen Institute and Women in the Director's Chair. I'm curious how did those programs maybe contribute to this ebb and flow that you're talking about, or just like maybe what was the most salient kind of skills that you took away from those experiences?
I'm so interested in women in the director's chair.
Yeah. The story. So I haven't done the career advancement module, so I can't speak to that. But the story and leadership program was really amazing. I was developing my feature in it, and so we did a lot of work both on the, like, myself as a director and like skills building, but also characters, and just like there was wellness incorporated into it. Like we did a lot of like somatic stuff, and just like really interesting practices that I felt like really opened me up and prepared me to make my first feature in a way that I wasn't prepared to before. So that was a really wonderful program. Was
it like script workshopping and that kind of, like, in what way did you have the concept coming in? What stage were you at?
I had a script.
Okay.
I had a script coming in. There was a little bit of script feedback, but a lot of it was, we did some work to understand our characters better and character types. It was like, sounds so weird, but it's like really holistic. And so
doesn't sound weird at all.
Yeah, it's just hard to point out like a very specific thing, but I'm like, oh, there are so many. And it was a few years ago now that I did it. And we did it online. I'm not sure how the program runs now.
Was it COVID era?
It was, 2020, like December or November 2021 into 2022.
Yeah. So things were still shifting back.
Yeah, so things were still shifting back, and it was right before, after I'd finished the program, it was shortly after that we applied for telefilm funding for it. Yeah.
Was it, what funding stream was it?
Regional.
Okay.
There we go.
Nice.
Speaking to maybe some of our emerging filmmaker audience listeners, for programs like this in general, I would be curious to hear about what pushed you to apply for these programs, maybe just like where in your career trajectory were you at that point in time, and how did like participating in those kind of catapult you forward? Or
So I would say the program I did
Yeah.
at the National Screen Institute made the biggest difference in my career of any program that I've ever done. And part of that is it was the first program I ever really did. I had met, so I was it was for the Totally Television program, which they don't run anymore. But I was a creative producer attached to a sci-fi series that just amazing writer who's in LA now, Gemma Holdway, had written, and we had met on a short the year before.
It's always about meeting.
Really, yeah,
the shorts.
Working with people is really how you get to know if you can keep working with them.
100%. Yeah.
And so we had met through that, and I mean, I always felt a little bit like I got kind of coattailed into it because it was such a brilliant script, and she was so much more experienced than I was at the time, and just as a result, I was in Toronto. I was learning so much, and everything was new to me, and I didn't have a foot in TV at all. And we ended up having the show optioned and with Lark, who's out here, and we, worked with them for a long time, and then with COVID, and it was going to be like an expensive sci-fi show, and it was like women and non-binary creators who were newer, and like it was just like it was a really uphill push.
Yeah.
But that was where I learned the most. And then other programs, I would say the biggest thing I got out of them and why I think these types of programs are super useful, it's not necessarily solely the things you learn, because there are so many places to learn, but it is the community you build out of it, the people you meet through the different programs, the other writer, director, producer, filmmakers that you meet, the mentors you meet, and the introductions you get, because a lot of them, a component of it is having roundtable discussions with people from telefilm, or they set up meetings with different production companies for you and that kind of thing. And it's a little bit of a check mark beside your name, like, this person is legitimate. And so I think that is the big benefit. But also, if you are going to do this, know that all it is doing is opening a door, and you still have to walk through it, and you still have
It's
to
still what you do with the program.
Yeah.
How long was the program?
The National Screen Institute.
Yeah.
We went out. It was like in multiple parts. So we went out to Toronto once in the fall. There were 3 different projects. Then we had to do some further development, resubmit it, and then there were 2 sets of 2 projects. One of them got like eliminated, which is like a weird thing to do. It was also it was a very good project as well. But we came back to Toronto, did some more pitching practice, and went out and met a bunch of production companies out there. And then the third part of it was they funded us to go to Banff, which was amazing because it is very, very expensive to go there. And we also got, the other thing that was great about that program that I almost forgot was they gave us a bunch of development money. Not like a huge amount, but they gave us money that we could. Any money is amazing.
Yes.
And we used it, we used it to go. Part of it was like we went down to LA and we met people there, and it was like we were able to use the money to pay for our flights and to help us cover the cost of our hotels and like meetings and things. And it's just all those barriers. It really broke down a lot of those barriers. For
That's
a new
helpful.
filmmaker.
I mean, even I started my master's program this week, which is crazy. But I can already tell it is the connections that you make, the people that you meet throughout the program. And I think with a lot of, any film school, any program you're really in, it is, you kind of get out of it what you put into it, right? Yeah. Should we take a quick break before
Let's
we
take a little break before we continue? I know, I have so many questions.
We will be right back. I'm just curious how you balance this kind of crazy world of being a creative in the film industry, and any kind of creative field, really. And being a parent.
Yeah, I think it's tricky, and I do want to find the right balance because I don't want people to feel like it's impossible, and I also don't want people to feel like it's easy. But it is like, it's something you have to choose actively, I think, or else you're gonna be really resentful and frustrated. I sort of joke that like the biggest skill I learned from being a parent is how to be depressed for like 6 hours a day and then stop
Yeah.
and then come back to it again tomorrow. Um, speaking of mental health challenges.
Yeah.
But it kind of works for, if you're a writer or if you're developing projects, like being able to segment your time is important.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing I found was that it helped me figure out my priorities a lot more, because you just don't have time for all of the I'm trying to find a polite word for it, but all of the like
BS.
yes, all of the BS that we love to like kind of swirl around in and mope and be like, oh, I don't know what to do, this is so hard, this is so confusing. And then especially when you have a baby and they need you all the time, and you have a toddler who's doing interesting things and you want to be a part of their life. When you have a kid who's doing all sorts of cool sports and you like watching them. It's you very quickly figure out what actually matters and what is stuff that you can let go and what doesn't matter. And it lowers your tolerance for people who don't respect your boundaries, and it has made me a much better, more effective person. But it's a lot of work. My spouse and co-parent is like also in the film industry.
Right.
They work in props in the union, and so in a way that's been helpful because financially we've been able to like lean on that. And then which has given me a bit more time to be selective about the types of projects I'm doing. And it's also allowed me to be around and do stuff like go on field trips and just be present when I can. And I think that's the key. Be present with what you're doing when you're doing it. And that's something I still struggle with, where it's like you can end up being swirling about work while you're trying to take care of your child. And then you can be feeling guilty for not being with your kid while you're at work, when your energy would be much better spent being focused on your kid when you're with your kid and focused on what you're doing at work when you're doing it.
No. I was just thinking, I was watching a Shonda Rhimes speech one day, and she was talking about how, people always ask her how she does it, how she's, a mother and does all of these things. And she's like, to be honest, you don't do it all at once. When I'm at work, but I'm thinking about my kids. And when I'm at home, I'm with my kids, but maybe I'm thinking about work.
Very much on the same subject, with me and her being a mother-daughter story. I know we talked about this a little bit before the episode started, but it was just such an interesting conversation. Like, do you feel like you see a little bit of yourself, or, I guess maybe it was like your own mother-daughter relationship coming into your mind while you were working on this project, and or like, how did you negotiate those feelings if they did come up?
Yeah, so my daughter is only 8, so she hasn't quite hit that teenager stage yet. Not quite yet, but I have my own mother-daughter relationship to drive on. I was like not the easiest, I think, around that age.
I absolutely was not.
I definitely wasn't.
I say, Mom, I love you, I'm sorry.
Right? I feel like 14-year-old girls.
Oh, my goodness.
People being raised as girls, it's like very, it's a lot.
It's a hellish time.
It's very hard to get through. So I had a lot of that to draw on, and I think I've also always been really fascinated with intergenerational trauma, but also just like intergenerational change, like the epigenetics basically of it, what we pass down to our children, what has been passed down to us through parental behavior, through the ways that we were treated, the things we were exposed to, and how sometimes maybe our parents trying to hide certain aspects of themselves from us to make us better might actually end up pushing us in like a similar direction and making some of the same mistakes. And I think that's always interesting, that legacy.
Yeah, it is very. There's so much to say about mother-daughter dynamics. Like, oh my goodness. I think in third year, almost every script that was pitched was some sort of mother-daughter story.
Because it's real. Yeah, it's real.
There's so much in that.
For audiences that are going to be watching Me and Her? What do you hope, maybe particularly you, audience, particularly like mothers and teenagers in the audience, like what do you, for people who might see themselves in the characters in your film, what do you hope that they take away from watching it?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that for any teenage girls that are watching it, that you like, it helps you have a little bit more empathy for your mom, help you have a little bit more empathy for your parents. It's hard to see them as full people, and I think that's one of the biggest coming of ages that happens, is when we start to see our parents as full humans who are flawed just like we are, and have hopes and dreams and things they're scared of. So maybe it can help a little bit with that. And I think for moms and parents out there, trying to remember what it was like to be that kid, and just being empathetic. Hopefully they can have more care and relate to each other a little better.
I think maybe seeing a film like that would have been helpful for my mother and I.
Oh,
maybe
my
we needed to go to
goodness.
like a mother-daughter movie night to
I remember watching
sort
Lady
some
Bird
stuff
and being
out.
like, oh, that's spot on.
Yeah, oh man.
The car scene in just the very beginning, I was like, I feel like I've had that
Oh
conversation.
man. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's also just what a beautiful, brilliant feminine writing.
I know.
Greta
Yeah.
Gerwig,
Yeah, shout out.
queen.
You
directed.
mentioned growing up in Texas.
A little
In
bit,
your
yeah, in my youth.
When did you come to Vancouver? Where did you start your filmmaking career in Vancouver?
Oh yes, very much. So I was like a kid when I was down there. I was born in Vancouver,
Okay.
and then my dad went back to school when I was a kid. And
Oh,
he went
that's
to
really interesting,
school.
actually.
Yeah. Which I always credit with seeing my dad in his 30s go back to school, and he went to Texas Chiropractic College in Houston, and so we all moved down there, and he became a fully licensed chiropractor in his early 40s.
Cool.
And so I just always saw that like you can reinvent yourself and you can try something new, and there's never it's never too late to go after what you're passionate about and what's important to you. And
Real.
that's something I really internalized young, and I'm very grateful for that. But
Yeah.
so we lived there until I was my daughter's age, and
Aw.
it's the same age she is now. And then we moved back up to Canada, and we moved around a little bit and kind of settled out in South Surrey. So I've spent the majority of my life in Vancouver and the Lower Mainland.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Me and Her was filmed in Vancouver.
Yes.
Yeah. How does, just being in your home base, I don't know, does that influence your filming at all, or does it provide some kind of comfort and feeling or influence on your work?
Yeah, and I think so we shot in Dunbar area.
Hey,
we
live
there.
there.
Which is, that's where Michelle lives and where she grew up. And when she talks, she's just a little bit older than me, but when she talks about her youth and what it was like when she was growing up, it really reminds me of South Surrey, White Rock, kind of similar demographics, and I know it's changed a lot out there, and it's not quite so isolated as it was when I was growing up, but so it was able to bring back a lot of the teenage stuff for me, and I really
Dunbar
like it here.
Theater also.
Oh, so good.
Dunbar Theater, go see a movie
I
there.
haven't-
Independent theaters.
Maybe I shouldn't
independent
say that,
cinemas.
but yeah.
Important. Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. Where in am I allowed to ask where you guys were filming, or was it house locations?
Yeah, it was so we actually mostly shot in this one house, and we made the basement into several different locations.
Awesome. I love that.
Amazing.
And then the scene at the end in the parking lot, we stole where Oak and Broadway is, how there's the Scotiabank there. We went there after everything was closed and just shot that scene
Nice.
with the scene in
Indie
the background.
filmmaking, yeah.
So
Nice.
they
Aw.
can't stop us now.
Yeah, man. Okay. Guerrilla filmmaking.
That's how you have to do it.
Yeah.
Questions to start to wrap us up, maybe?
Yes, please.
I think you're about to ask the same thing that I
Yeah.
was, but for aspiring filmmakers, maybe queer or with queer or underrepresented voices, what advice might you have for them based on your own filmmaking journey?
I think learn from my mistakes, and don't try and do everything yourself, and don't assume that don't assume that you're so different. Don't assume that there aren't people out there who get you, and build that community, because that's what you need to get through making a film, and that's also what you need to get through life.
Yeah.
I think is a strong community around you. Build that community early on.
Huge.
And just
This
keep
is
doing it.
everything we talk about on our show.
Every
It's
day,
just
every
building community. Yes. Picnic with others.
Yes, truly. And we are at the picnic.
Yeah. Period.
I just have a fun, silly question. What stories might you be excited to tell in the future? Are you already cooking up other ideas, or are you?
I'm cooking up. Yes, I'm cooking up a few different ideas. There's one right now I'm really interested in that is very focused on friendship and
love,
kind of the depths of friendships, and how when a friendship ends, the hole it leaves, and how we don't really have
we don't have a structure to understand that type of friendship breakups.
Yeah, and so that's something that's kind of at the core of a project I'm developing right now.
That's beautiful. I also think, this is maybe not what you're talking about, but queer friendships. The depths of those and the understandings and the different kinds of love in those relationships.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
We've talked about the different kinds of love.
We have.
Yeah.
Extensively.
Anyway,
on this show or in our personal life?
Maybe both. I don't know. I think there's always something mildly fruity in our episodes.
Anyway.
Talking about queer love. Thank you so much for joining us today, Alex.
Thank you for having me.
It's been such a joy.
It has been such a joy. I'm so excited to witness the premiere in full throttle on the 15th. I think it's going to be amazing and really exciting.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to have it screened
Is
locally.
the whole team going to be there?
I hope so. I know a lot of people are. I'm really hoping we can get pretty much everyone out. So.
Yeah. That would be so amazing.
At SFU.
Downtown at
at
the
Center for the Arts.
Yes.
Gold Corp.
Yeah,
I think is what it's called.
Okay,
I'm gonna have to double check that. SFU, if you're watching this, I'm really sorry. I know the name of your building, and I'll figure it out.
It's okay if you don't.
Yeah, I think it's the David Mofagian Cinema at SFU at the Gold Corp Center for the Arts at SFU downtown.
Shout out.
Beautiful. Amazing.
Yeah. Last question. Is there anything you just want to plug? Anything you want to? Do you have a website? Do you have socials? Anything you want to?
Yeah. I'm basically only on Instagram now because I'm trying to be on the internet a little bit less. It's making me happier. That's another tip. Stay off the internet a little bit.
Yes.
I'm at ARC Directs on Instagram. That's also arcdirects.com is my website. You can chat with me there. Happy to. Always happy to talk to up and coming filmmakers and people who are looking to grow their careers. So anytime.
Awesome. That's so kind.
Thank you so much for being here, Alex.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Thanks
this
for
was
having
lovely.
me.
What a lovely beginning to the day.
Yes, what a lovely beginning.
Beginning.
Listeners, please enjoy the rest of your day, and don't forget to check us out at FLM Picnic on Instagram, or you can find recordings for all of our episodes online at the CITR website, or on Spotify or YouTube at Film Picnic.
So many places to listen and watch.
Yep. We'll see you next time on Film Picnic as we continue to explore the
Canadian
film industry one picnic at a time.
I knew you were going to do the new one. I was ready for it.